Welcome to our webinar, The PMO of Tomorrow, Harnessing AI and Strategic Portfolio Management to Drive Business Outcomes. If you enjoy this topic, please explore our YouTube channel for more videos and follow us on LinkedIn to be in the know for event announcements and speaking engagements.
Welcome, everybody. We're excited to present this topic today. With all the changes in the marketplace, in the arena of project and portfolio management, the advent of AI, there's a lot of changes at our doorstep. And how do we maximize those things and become the PMO of tomorrow? That's the subject of our conversation today. So let's begin. Today's PMOs are facing challenges on multiple fronts, in this modern, competitive, and fast-paced digital age. It may be in the discipline itself. It may be increased competition from others. Just the technological advances that are presenting opportunities and challenges for us, all on those fronts are impacting the things that we need to do and how we need to evolve as PMOs. And that pace of change is not slowing down. It's continuing to accelerate, meaning the pressure is put on us to adopt and adapt to these changes more quickly than we ever have before. Now, strategic portfolio leaders are forming critical partnerships with digital business leaders to achieve desired business outcomes. And these days, the focus is on delivering value and delivering outcomes, not just delivering. So what do we mean by a digital business leader? Well, really any executive who participates in strategy and investment decisions in order to achieve strategic digital business outcomes within any organization. And the top challenges such leaders face, according to a survey that was done by the Gartner Group, was the challenges, the top three were the ability to orchestrate enterprise change, prioritizing and executing on cross-functional investments, and speed to deliver value, being nimble enough and agile enough to deliver those things quickly. So how are leaders responding to these top challenges? Well, according to Gartner, there's a moving from more departmental siloed PMOs into an enterprise PMO or EPMO. At the time of this survey, 49% of organizations had an EPMO function, and that number was on the rise. Why? Because digital business leaders with an EPMO are gaining competitive advantage on a number of fronts. Now, of the organizations that don't yet have an EPMO, and digital business leaders without an EPMO say that they would actually want one and or very likely champion one to have adoption within its organization because of the value it would represent. Now, the most prized benefits for the respondents without an EPMO is that they desired to be able to better execute on large enterprise-wide initiatives. And many of the things that we're faced in this day of digital and business transformation affects the entire organization, and we have to coordinate these efforts across and cross-functionally within those organizations. And the ability to rapidly adapt to changing situations on the ground, to be able to have quick and effective portfolio prioritization and be able to change as the needs change, as the dynamics change, is something that is a benefit that is aspired to. Now, when we looked at the survey details around that, the top ranked challenges to digital business success, if we look at the bars here, the light blue bar and the percentages associated with them represent in this survey which of these things or how many of these were in people's top fives in the survey. So if we look at the top three, orchestrate enterprise or organizational change, 65% of them had this in their top five in the survey. The dark blue bar, how many of them had it ranked as number one? So it was both the number one from top five, and it was actually the number one of people that had it ranked as number one. Prioritize and execute on cross-functional investments and speed to delivery was how this stuff sorted out in the survey. Now, why the shift? Well, because business leaders are increasingly generating a continuous flux of threats and opportunities that have significant implications across the enterprise. And we have to respond to these. You know, these are things that are coming to our doorstep. And responding to these threats and opportunities often requires very significant investment, both from a cost perspective and from an effort perspective of our human resources and human capital. It also requires very organized and effective orchestration and governance at scale, meaning across the organization, so that we can actually be successful at the end of the day across the board. And core PMO, EPMO functions like execution of these large enterprise-wide initiatives and quick, effective portfolio prioritization is a way for us to get the benefits that we realized and the things that people aspire to. So ultimately, the goal here is to deliver more value and to be more effective across our organization, which much more complex initiatives that we have on our plate. Now, we've come a long way. You know, traditional project portfolio management approaches have really advanced things in organizations over the past decades. You know, things like clarity and consistency of project management activities, more complete information, more realistic and complete planning, optimization of resource allocation, you know, better visibility and reporting. These are things that many organizations are doing today, and there's a myriad of tools out there that can provide these capabilities, or just individual project and task management that people are looking for sometimes in individual teams or individual departments. But we really can't be satisfied with that any longer. In today's world, we really need to align our strategies with our execution and have shared objectives of the business strategists, of our business leaders, and have that communicated and being factored in by those executing the change, the people actually delivering, so that we can get true business value that is meaningful and appropriate. Now, this is a process that involves people, strategy, and operations. It's a system of developing that strategy and then planning, having organizational alignment around those strategies, being able to put operational and project plans in place, and then monitor and learn as we execute on those things and adapt as we learn more, for the basis of doing better and increasing the value that we deliver by executing this strategy. Now, strategic portfolio management, which really takes things to another level, the acronym being SPM, is more than just even aligning your projects with your strategy. It's a combination of business capabilities, processes, and supporting portfolio management technology and assets. You know, in this graphic to the left, you see items in here like value streams, products, capabilities, meaning business capabilities. You know, these are things we have to factor into our complex endeavors to make sure that we're successful as we come out the back end of our initiative. So leadership requires strategic portfolio management to support enterprise-wide strategy to execution, alignment, and adaptation. So we have a forum and a place to make sure that it's properly communicated and that everybody is rowing in the same direction. And then the definition of the key strategies and the desired outcomes, and then mapping the portfolio elements, include more than just the projects. It's those elements in the graphic on the right-hand side that all have to be factored in and potentially modified or re-engineered in order to meet the demands of the new digital age. So we have to capture and define and prioritize the business strategies, manage the execution of the initiatives that align with those, and then have full visibility into the state of the core functional assets that we depend on. And leadership sets the direction. IT and functional management owns those assets and is responsible for making sure that they're current and up to date and meets the needs of the organization, and the execution teams like the PMOs and the project managers and the scrum masters and the product owners have to deliver on those. Now, the shift towards SPM to have more organizational agility, according to the Gartner Group, SPM has three main key attributes. One is portfolio alignment, which we're talking about here with this alignment with strategy. There needs to be ongoing portfolio flexibility so that we can respond quickly to changes in the environment, in the marketplace, et cetera. And then we have to have value-driven decision-making as the basis for making our decisions on what things that we need to work on. Now, there's an opportunity here because according to the Gartner research and surveys on this, less than 20% of organizations are highly effective at all three key attributes today, meaning that there's room for growth, meaning that there's room for improvement, and there's the ability for us to address these things in a better way than we're doing today. Now, because the combination of this SPM approach and maybe the implementation of EPMOs, we are less likely to have a fragmented approach to our work, because this can lead to excessive cost because of conflicting priorities, redundant processes, misaligned goals, and even duplication of effort. The other danger, if we don't implement a more strategic portfolio management process, is that the day-to-day crises operationally sometimes can overtake and dominate everything. We're so busy, keeping things going that we unintentionally get pulled away from the strategic objectives that we have that are important to our long-term growth, long-term survival. And the idea is we have to reserve a focus on those strategic pieces while we maintain the operational side of things. So the importance of strategic portfolio management in today's business environment would include addressing the needs of increasingly complex business environments, and then we can manage the risk and make sure we align with the right things. Resource optimization and financial optimization, because we have to, in this doing more with less type of scenario, we have to put our dollars and our resources on the right things that maximize the value and the returns on the investment we get as an organization. And the demand for data-driven decision-making, which is a key component, as Gartner said, in strategic portfolio management, we have to have access to that data so that we can make real-time decisions based upon complete and robust information sets, so that we can make sure that the directions that we take and the incremental decisions we make along the way support the alignment with the strategic goals of the organization. We also have to factor in the fact that people are doing work in a variety of different ways. Depending on the type of projects that you have and the tools that you're using, there's agile and other project management methodologies that are in the mix and variations of those. And we have to incorporate all those into a complete picture of portfolio management in our PMOs. And very often organizations are siloed because of the different tools that we have. And then, to be quite frank, if we don't evolve and our leadership doesn't try to take advantage of new opportunities and mitigate the challenges that we face and go to the marketplace and have new ways of doing business that align with the way the market and just society in general is going, we're not going to be as successful as our competition. Now, we talked about the different execution methodologies, and Agile continues to grow. People are trying to become more Agile all the time, but to be quite frank, Waterfall is still widely used because different types of projects lend themselves more to that. And there's different Agile variations, hybrid methodologies that combine both Waterfall and Agile in them, Scrum Fall, whatever it might be. And then some people just cherry pick versions of this that take the best pieces that meet their needs or what they're willing to deal with, including some things are just done on a continuous delivery basis as well. And this picture here is just meant to illustrate how the proliferation of tools across the organization can become complex and can segment and silo information in our organizations. We look down the left-hand side and we look at the discipline or the capability that we have, and then the functional areas across the top. Look at the different tools that are being used to support those from an execution, reporting, data perspective. And you can look at it's very complex. How do you harness all that in a complex environment? This really was a depiction from an actual client that we worked with and helped with these things in a very successful way. And because data can be siloed and different departments and functional areas can be siloed, this is where we talked about the increased cost and inefficiencies can come from lack of alignment and coordination. Because we, on a data front, could be forced to do manual, at least semi-manual mashups of data from these multiple tools and data sources. And then the manual report creation that has to come out of that is very time consuming. And also duplication of efforts in data entry. If you have to enter the same data in more than one tool, for example, it's prone to error, let alone being wasteful as far as time and effort. And disconnected information in this fashion, it is difficult to remain accurate and current across the board as you're looking at an entire portfolio of initiatives and work. let alone chasing team members down for timely and complete status and updates if they have to put the same data in different places. We also find often that if we don't harness this, the resource capacity planning is typically often its own separate data silo, maybe in a complex spreadsheet off to the side that may not have any true correlation to the work that's actually being managed within the portfolio. It's just an artifact in and of itself. So in this day and age, we believe that teams need to execute how they need to, but leadership still needs to get the visibility that it needs. So in this particular graphic here, I see a methodologies where you may have some combination of more iterative agile approaches and maybe some have more waterfall approaches. And the tools that are being used by different parts of the organization might be like people using maybe Azure DevOps or a Jira for the iterative. They might be using a Microsoft project or other for more waterfall type of planning. We have our own planning tools in OnePlan. You might be using some of those. This in and of itself by default could cause fragmentation. Now, but we also need to then maybe aggregate these initiatives and look at them in terms of cohesive programs or different portfolios for different parts of the organization, align with the strategies, the objectives, and the key results that leadership wants to see. So the idea here is how do we let the teams work with the things that are most conducive to what they're doing, but give leadership what it needs. Now, even if people have gone all agile, one of the things that doesn't go away is that the needs might be different. For example, the teams themselves might be managing and tracking things with more agile approaches and metrics like burn downs and burn ups and velocity charts and cumulative flow diagrams, right? But leadership may still need to see at their level at the portfolio the language of the business. They might want to see more financials, returns on investment, when things, when they can expect the value to be delivered or realized. Those are the types of things that different audiences might have, and we need to be able to provide that to them. Now, OnePlan does provide integrations so that we can bring together the data from all these tools into a common forum, whether it be the overall work management tools that you have in here that you might be using, Microsoft Project Planner, Smartsheet, Asana, Monday, etc. Right? Software development or agile tools you might be using like Azure DevOps or Jira, financial data that might be coming from your financial ERP systems, etc. To bring those data in with productized connectors is something that mitigates the problems that many people face. All right, so we've talked about the portfolio management and PMO approaches. We've talked about the fragmentation of data that's out there and the proliferation of tools. Now we add into the mix as well AI evolution, its rapid adoption and how its effect is already being felt. When ChatGPT was made general availability to the public in November 2022, was the fastest adoption by users ever. It took 5 days to reach 1 million users when ChatGPT became available. Compared to other popular tools, it was significantly faster than anything else we've ever seen. Now, the risks and rewards of using something like AI, there's a lot of benefits. It helps with code generation and optimization, answering questions on prompts, language translation, being able to summarize and classify things, etc. But it also comes with its risks and misuses. There's, bias and ethical things. There's copyright violations. There's, fraud and other things that are possible. But, we have to learn how to manage with this and adapt to this to take advantage of its capabilities. And, this has been used very broadly by individuals for, general purpose use. But the current challenges that we have as strategic portfolio leaders is we must cut through the Gen AI hype. There's a lot of hype around it about the future, etc. But we must identify its business and functional implications fast because Gen AI will impact your strategic portfolio management lifecycle, whether we like it or not. So we got to cut through that hype and we got to prepare now for the Gen AI impacts that are sure to hit us. And look at the things that we can actually do today. There's things today that we can actually capitalize on and we actually can use. Now, the impacts on strategic portfolio leaders, these are some of them. The emergence of Gen AI in the workplace and in the general public creates immediate knowledge and skill gaps, meaning our teams in our PMOs and our EPMOs and other portfolio management roles they may not be attuned to how to leverage these tools to use them within the organization. Many other parts of the organization may be starting to use those, and left unaddressed, it may impact our ability to adapt and grow as we need to. The other part of it is, because of all the hype around generative AI, it will tend to flood the portfolio demand and intake and requests for demand that come into your pipelines of ideas and requests. And there'll be competing investment ideas, and it's going to require our strategic leaders to prioritize demand and select the right things for us to work on first. And then we talked about data-driven decision making, and oftentimes our strategic portfolio leaders maybe lack the overall partnerships we're going to need to have to acquire the necessary data, so we have complete data sets by which Gen AI can leverage to help us with better decision making. And then the other part of it is that it's going to change the nature of our work. You know, many of our roles are still going to be needed. AI is not going to take those jobs, but what it will do is it'll change the nature of maybe the way we approach certain tasks. Maybe they'll take routine or mundane things off of our plate so that we can be freed up for more high value things that an EPMO or PMO might be delivering to an organization. So some recommendations, along those lines, we need to close those gaps as quickly as possible and train our staff to exploit these things for strategic portfolio management purposes and efficiencies. Be able to evaluate and set criteria for evaluating the portfolio demand that's going to come in with Gen AI related projects that are going to be put on our doorstep, and identify the types of data that we're going to need to make the right decisions and incorporate that into our mix, and ultimately track the responsibilities of our key positions of our people, and make sure that those roles and responsibilities and the skill sets that are required to do the things that are needed are updated as we go and as we grow in this area. Now, it sounds like a lot of change, but overall strategic portfolio management, those disciplines are still intact. It's how are we going to leverage AI to enhance that and to partner with us and augment our human intellect and our human capabilities to get better at doing these things. So for example, it can enhance the adapting of portfolio to market changes because it can help us with that decision making. It can potentially help us with building next generation talent as we grow and skill up our people on leveraging and getting better using AI. And embracing disruptive technologies, it can help us with that as well, of which AI is about as disruptive a technology as there is. So portfolio management leaders don't need to take unnecessary risks, okay, according to Gartner, with any GI investments, but doing nothing now is a risk in and of itself and could lead to missed opportunities and negative consequences. Instead, creating a practical Gen AI adoption plan is probably a better road to go. Now, key findings is that portfolio management leaders by their nature tend to be pragmatic and practical by their nature, and they don't just willy-nilly go chasing off new trends or business fads. So, that's the nature of us, so we tend to be more cautious and conservative, right? But whether or not portfolio management leaders have a plan for Gen AI adoption or not, it is going to take hold in the rest of your workplace, meaning it can have both positive and negative effects if you get left behind and aren't prepared to deal with it if it isn't already in place. And then, the enterprise-wide Gen AI access will create challenges and opportunities for you in just missing the boat potentially on training your people and making sure that your staff is up to date and ready to address the challenges overall. So we should adapt a proactive vision and approach to these investments. Identify, close the gaps, enable and partner for the data, and accelerate and advance in a roadmap that makes sense for our culture and our organizations. Let's not get caught flat-footed. Let's have a plan. And let's create that practical Gen AI investment plan that makes sense for us and our organizations. And then let's also track mainstream Gen AI adoption across the enterprise and understand what's going on across the rest of the organization so that we can dovetail, complement, and possibly even leverage that in what we do. Now, today, there are real things that can be done. There's common project management tasks and portfolio management tasks that there's been some benchmarks and some projections done as far as illustrated time savings per project. If you look at the things that our project and portfolio managers are doing on things like schedule creation, status reporting, meeting management, productivity evaluation, resource allocation, budget management, risk management. Today, there was a survey done that basically figured out what the average weekly time is spent by individuals in these roles, like 3 hours with a schedule creation, 1 hour on status reporting, meeting management. And in all of those with AI assistance, there's the potential and the likelihood that that weekly time will be reduced in time savings. In this case, it estimated from about 11 hours and 30 minutes down to 2 hours and 45 minutes potentially, which is just under 9 hours of savings. So once again, some of these things are areas we can do today, and we'll talk about that. For example, like ChatGPT. Many of you are using that today and using it for general use on giving it prompts and getting responses and ideas and content from it. Let's just say in general, you wanted to create a project charter. You could do that. And here in this recorded prompt, create a project charter for a kitchen remodel project, and giving you feedback in the format of a project charter with objectives and scope of work and project deliverables, etc. This is something that can be done in general with just general use things like ChatGPT. You know, you could use it to help identify a list of risks if we wanted to start a risk management log, right? And be able to look at, you know, what this particular type of project on this new product development effort, what are the risks? And here's market fit and custom needs, technology and innovation risks, project management risks, regulatory and compliance lists, etc. Instead of us starting from a blank canvas, we're getting some ideas of the risks we should consider even before we embark on the project. And then maybe even asking it which are commonly out of those the most costly and impactful risks, and the cost of redesign and rework if we miss the mark, market adoption and revenue generation, etc. Once again, giving us ideas that we don't have to start from scratch with. Now, software providers, Microsoft 365 and Microsoft is launching and iterating and adding to Copilot, which is really AI that's going to work alongside Microsoft 365 apps such as Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Microsoft Planner, Project, etc. The idea there is that it's available to be a companion with the tools that we already are working with in our organizations and leverage maybe the data that we have in those tools as we're working with it. So that's kind of adding another level of tying it in with the work we're already doing. So for example, in the new Planner for Microsoft, if you have Planner Premium, you have access to Copilot. And for example, in this particular case, just an example, you might ask it in the context of a plan you're working on, add tasks for a marketing campaign that we're working on. And next thing you know, it's suggesting and dynamically adding tasks for a marketing campaign to your plan that you can then augment and further massage, or even maybe adding goals and that type of thing. But then again, just doing schedules is one thing, but you know, you need something that assists you with the full strategic portfolio management discipline. The OnePlan provides a path for that with its solution. So for example, to have tools in there and AI that can help with the business leader's development and maintenance of a strategy or a strategic plan, maybe putting objectives and key results in OKRs, maybe value streams. The execution leaders having the tools that they need, regardless of how they execute, what methods or tools they're using, whether it's more adaptive hybrid approaches, whether it's PSA, professional services types of approaches, whether it's more agile approaches, or maybe more product-oriented types of approaches, be able to do all that with a singular tool. And then the functional leaders who own those assets we talked about, the overall enterprise architecture, application portfolio, product portfolio, and factor that into our overall strategic portfolio management process and decision making. Now, OnePlan also is designed to mitigate that segmentation that happens from a proliferation of tools. Rather than fight the battle of taking tools out of people's hands because you want more homogeneous data, why not have the power to choose that OnePlan provides you and be able to take planning data that comes from a variety of tools. We show some popular things here: Smartsheet, Project for the Web, Project Professional, Azure DevOps, or project for the web from Microsoft now becoming Planner, Basic, and Premium as far as the branding that goes in there. But be able to harness all that and bring that into that common data set that the AI can then leverage comprehensively from one place. Now, OnePlan is designed to provide you complete SPM capabilities. So whether it be the strategy and have the facilities to define the OKRs and the strategic plan that leadership has, whether it's light enterprise architecture so that we can align ourselves and factor in those things like products, applications, business capabilities, value streams, etc. Be able to have that funnel, which includes Gen AI ideas and others, ideation and project requests, and be able to factor those in and maybe factor into that decision how well they align with our objectives and our key results that are outlined by our leadership. Ultimately, we want to go and have full portfolio management capability to select the right portfolio of things that we're working on and look at them from more traditional list views or more board views for your portfolio, or maybe from your roadmap type of perspectives, all with the same data, but flexible visuals on all that. And then have to be able to factor in resource capacity planning, and do we actually have the resources to deliver on the things that we choose to do? Do we have a chance of success given the plan we have and the resources and the dollars that we have on financial planning to make sure that we're allocating those dollars and resources like we talked about in the earlier slides, and also are the things we're committing to within the realm of our ability to deliver. Now, as things change, you're going to have to analyze alternatives constantly. Now, what if scenario modeling is something that you need to have in order to be able to facilitate that on a effective basis, and OnePlan does provide that. Now, we talked about the use of a variety of other planning tools and not being able to take those out of people's hands and still be able to have a strategic portfolio management solution. Well, OnePlan, one of the differentiators and reason that people come to us is that not only do we have our own work planning capability for more waterfall planning and for more agile planning, we have productized connectors that work really well to bring in the data routinely from these other tools that we're talking about, fold those into the planning mix within OnePlan, and then have all that data be able to roll up into the portfolio and the full data set that's encompassed in the solution. And that includes adding things like issues, risks, change requests, etc., and the individual resource planning that goes into each project and initiative. Now, team members, to have current information, have to have an easy way to provide feedback instead of having them to go to a myriad of different tools and provide updates and sometimes duplicating data that they have to enter. Why not go to one My Work area that people can go and status all the things that are put on your plate, or even just be able to see what's been expected of you to deliver and when, all in one portal for yourself. Or if you have to charge time to capitalize labor, to do chargebacks internally, or to bill clients, the ability to have that all encompassed in one place is what OnePlan gives you the opportunity to do. And obviously reporting is something that's important. You know, individual status reports, have them pop out as a natural output of the process rather than to build them each reporting period. And maybe I'd just be able to put in your own narrative around that in each of those cases is something that's a big time saver, as well as dashboards that whether it be at the portfolio level, whether it be at the individual project level, whether it be just resource focused, et cetera, be able to have those things at your fingertips, even for the people that aren't hands-on within OnePlan, is something that we provide from the strategic portfolio management perspective. And then as we have this more complex environment that we talked about, and having strategies aligned with projects and potentially showing the associations or dependencies we might have on things like applications and business capabilities and products, be able to show those with graphical visualizations so we can understand our risks and what we're dependent on, to make sure that we're tracking how those things are doing and how they might impact our success or lack thereof. Ultimately, it's about delivering value and delivering outcomes to the organization. Now, we talked about artificial intelligence, and we talked about ChatGPT, we talked about Copilot from Microsoft. Well, OnePlan has its own AI-based assistant called Sofia GPT, and it can be leveraged in all those areas above to help augment the things that you do and the disciplines and the tasks that you have within each of those sub areas that you see above in that graphic. The key is about selecting the right work, making sure we're doing the right things, and then execute well and do the work right. Now, by being able to have this and bring all this data in from different tools and different places, gives us the ability to structure that challenge we talked about earlier on, that people want from an EPMO, of orchestrating and delivering enterprise-wide and cross-functional efforts that can be complex. Because in this digital transformation age, the things that we embark upon usually touch many, if not all parts of our organization. So we have to have everybody on board and rowing in the same direction, as I mentioned, right? The key is that to have a tool like OnePlan to be able to deliver that for you is key. Now, where we're at with AI, just to give you an idea with Sofia, today we're in this AI-based assistant for SPM where we give it prompts and it gives us suggestions, it gives us data, it helps us plan, helps us optimize, etc. And that's where we're at today. But we're very quickly going to move into that next phase. We're already developing and planning into this fully autonomous mode where it could be constantly monitoring and giving us suggestions and alerting us to the fact when things are falling out of bed. And the key there is we're not that far away from that future stage as we're working with Sofia. And so Sofia is that purpose-built AI for strategic portfolio management. And it doesn't leverage OpenAI out in the open internet. It leverages Microsoft's Azure OpenAI, which comes within the Microsoft cloud, some additional security and compliance and those things that you'd come to expect from working in the Microsoft cloud. But it's also been trained not only on what it knows from Azure OpenAI, but also it's been trained on the strategic portfolio management discipline, OnePlan capabilities, and on top of that, it will leverage the data that's on the screen for you in OnePlan to factor into its responses to your prompts. So all the things that we're going to talk about is the reasons and the areas where you can use this. It leverages not only its base core large language model, but it also leverages what we've trained in on strategic portfolio management, the operations of OnePlan, and the data of yours that's in OnePlan without learning your data, just transactionally. So it gives you a more robust response that's focused on strategic portfolio management. So Sofia GPT is always available in OnePlan, and we'll show you some examples of that today. So down here in the lower right, you see Sofia as a blue circle, and you can access it in context wherever you're at. And it also gives you some suggestions in different areas where you're at of typical types of prompts that you may give it for response, but you're free to enter your own just like you would in ChatGPT. And some sample use cases for AI in OnePlan right now, there's many. And as I talked about cutting through the hype, this stuff is here and available for you to do today, whether it be to augment your strategic planning, your portfolio optimization, work management, task management, building plans, resource plans, risk assessment, resource allocation, investment forecasting, etc. Now, the analysts have said that AI and strategic portfolio management has these opportunities where we can use it for augmented data entry, automated information retrieval, communication automation and how we correspond with others in the organization, resource estimation it can help us identify underperforming investments and maybe some suggestions on what we might do, forecast completion and spending and analysis of that and identify those things. We budget and plan optimization in our planning process, risk identification, right, and mitigate those risks and identify them before they become real issues for us. Defect reduction, so we can scrutinize project data to see where defects are most likely to transpire, for example, and just find data anomalies, right? These are just some of the areas that we see opportunities for doing right now. So on the demonstration side of things, I'm not going to have time today for much of a live demonstration on this, but I just wanted to show you real quickly that things like the objectives and key results, that are in OnePlan are things that are here today. The things that we might look at in how those objectives and key results are aligned with other things. For example, I might look at that visualizer that we talked about and see how this objective of increased project success rate is aligned. So for example, if I look at a runway view and I look at all those different elements that we discussed in the slides, this objective has key results, which are tangible measures of success and progress towards achieving that objective. And those are aligned with projects and epics, some of which may or may not be on track. And we can basically see if anything is putting this objective or this key result at risk. And in turn, these projects and epics may depend on different products being updated, upgraded, or modernized, applications, business capabilities, value streams. and be able to look at that and be able to, for example, drill into this at any given point in time and be able to pop up the data that gives me an idea why this thing might be turning yellow and why it might be putting us at risk. The key there is it's all available to us. And then the ideas and the intake that we talked about, to be able to go into OnePlan as a common portal where anybody in your organization can submit an idea and the details around that, and they can vote on it. You can prioritize these things and ask for rankings on these things for selection of the things that can then be promoted from here into active projects in your portfolio. I think I'll just stop here for a second just to show a live iteration of Sofia, and say we're trying to select and sort through a bunch of requests or ideas that are in here, and I might ask it something like, based on votes and priority and return on investment, what 3 projects should we approve first and why? And have it analyze and look at all the different dimensions that it might look at in here and maybe give us some suggestions. Now, obviously it's giving us suggestions. We ultimately are the decision makers on this and decide which approach we're going to take. But sometimes we have large volumes of data that we have to sort through, and we're looking for some guidance to maybe give us a starting point, maybe factor in some things that we weren't considering at the outset. And as we look at that, it could be giving us, outputs, based upon. So this is basically giving us the method it's using on the votes and the priority and the ROI, and enumerating that, and then analyzing the projects. It's basically giving us the projects here that it's identifying with the myriad of those factors, and saying that these ideas are ones that we should probably be considering first, and the rationale behind as to why it's in this list. The idea here is that we can do this at any given point in time in any area of the system. And then it's also giving us some narrative here on some key considerations that we might have around that. So once again, this is an example of how you would use this at any given point in time to help with selection, for example. Okay. Also, if we go to the portfolios, one of the things we talked about is enabling the capabilities of an EPMO, and cross-functional efforts within your organization. OnePlan has the ability to have 1 or more portfolios in. You can actually structure your plan type hierarchy in here, where you might have 1 or more portfolios and programs with projects and say epics within it. And as we look internally within any of these, you can see that we have a bunch of different projects and agile efforts going on within here that have icons off to the side that are showing us that we are connected to data sources from a variety of other tools. We have other webinars that focus on that nature of it, but just be aware that this is how it can all come together. And each of these portfolios might represent different parts of the organization that might be working on elements of cross-functional efforts that are in there. And we have list views in here. We have board views of these portfolios. We have roadmap views that allow us to look at these things on when things are going to get delivered, etc. So once again, flexible, dynamic things that are automatically created and speed up our ability to have data to do decisions. Now, if I go search and go drill into a specific project, for example, all these projects have the ability to have details in here. For example, on the business case and prioritization and the current state of the data and how things are trending and those types of things. We have work plans in here that for this particular project that would give us a work type of, say, for example, a schedule that you can put into place that could be built in here, or actually have the AI build this, which we'll show you an example of in a minute. We also have work types for things like backlogs for backlog planning and sprint planning and tracking issues, risk changes, and other things. Also, that resource capacity planning on an individual project basis that can be done here in a very flexible fashion. You can plan in hours or percentages or FTE with generic or named individuals. The financials, as we talked about, being able to understand what the financial investments are that we're going to need and how those aggregate up, whether it be overall budgets or revised forecasts or actuals, or even forecasting benefits or revenue along the way. These are things that all are needed in order to have that comprehensive view and those comprehensive data sets that we talked about that are needed for data-driven decision making. Ultimately, these things are coming into an overall resource capacity plan. So as I showed you an individual plan, we could be coming in and looking at a developer role and see, that Ehrlich is on all these different projects and he's over allocated. And if I look at just from an FTE perspective, I can see that, he's allocated more than double his capacity in an extended period of time here later in the year. We've got to do some things. We got to potentially find a place for him and maybe find replacements for him, or a generic assignment that needed to be done, and find those and maybe look at who might have availability that can take on a specific project and take those up and do replacements in here. This is something that helps us with the overall strategic portfolio management process and teeing us up for success based upon our resource capacity. The other key piece is, what if modeling. And in this what if modeling, the ability to set up different models and be able to look at candidate projects and ideas that we might have in place and be able to say, out of all these things, what should we do, and set up different scenarios and save them. For example, if I had a $10 million constraint, what projects can I select to fit within that to get me within a $10 million constraint, and be able to look and say, within that $10 million constraint, I can only do a subset of these projects, or potentially I could change the timing on these and those types of things. And as I run through different scenarios, I can not only compare the different scenarios and look at how they compare with one another from a key metrics perspective, I can also go in here and ultimately look at the ultimate decision and then see, what things did I choose, and where they fall from a prioritization and benefits perspective. Also highlight the things I didn't select and see if there's anything that I missed. The key there is we can evaluate flexible scenarios on many different fronts. So those are just some of the areas that we talked about, but I just wanted to show them to you live to show you that they're here and live within OnePlan to do those things, and that Sofia is available to us at any given point in time to help us augment us in our decision making. Now, I think I'll go through next and talk a little bit about some AI examples and how we might use that. So AI for strategic planning. For example, let's just say we wanted to have some help with what some viable objectives and key results are. And let's just say we talked about an enterprise PMO. Let's ask it right now, what's a list of viable OKRs for an enterprise PMO? So Sofia is being asked here, and Sofia is going to then give us some suggestions of an objective and associated key results that you would have in here to start out your process for doing OKRs for that enterprise PMO. We have a list of viable OKRs for the enterprise PMO, or you could actually just ask it to give you some key results for the objective. We could also analyze data to identify patterns, opportunities, and risks. So for example, here, I'm looking at the overall strategic plan after it's built out and what we have, and ask it to identify some things that might need to be brought to my attention. So there's basically given us the categorization of these things and the opportunities we might have to improve it, etc. Portfolio optimization. You can just have it summarize the portfolio data, for example. And I'll come in here. And my goal here is to just give you a high-level suggestions as far as things that you might be able to do today with this AI. And so here it's giving me a summarization, quantification of things, of some statistics about my portfolio. And then after that, it's going to give me some additional analysis of that, basically saying, aligning this with the goals and the value streams that we have, and then which projects are at the highest risk and explain why. So the idea here is it's giving me not only some data elements summarized for me very quickly, but now it's giving me some analysis of where my risk areas are based upon the data that's in there. Or you could just isolate and ask it, rank my plans by highest risk of failure. In this particular case, I'm just isolating that. It's looking at my overall portfolio. And as I ask it to rank plans by the highest risk of failure, it's basically trying to alert me to what it is that really should require my attention. And this EHR implementation is at high risk from a number of reasons here, and the framework to port application devices, that one as well. So the key is there, we can go there. Any data anomalies, we talked about data anomalies in the portfolio. Is there any inconsistency that we need to find here? So in this particular case, I could be looking at, let's see what it finds. We have some weird numbers in there that it's saying that maybe we, need to figure out why that is, or we have some projects with zero budget. We have prioritization scores that don't make sense and ROI values that don't seem to make sense. So the idea here is it's calling our attention to things that we might need to clean up as far as data anomalies that are in there. Now on the work management side of things and doing tasks, right? We could do simple things like, hey, we want to provide a business case for this new project or this new idea that we have in place, and have it basically say, based upon the nature of this, the name of it, and the categorization and the metadata we put against this, it says, please define the description, business case, and value statement for this project as we're formulating it. Once again, helping us not start anything from scratch. We're the final arbiter of what we put in here, but it's giving me the description narrative, it's giving me the business case narrative, and it's giving me the value statement in here as well. Build a project schedule for smart home automation. You could just go in and say, ask me to build it a sample schedule, and then you could use that to refine it. You could, this is kind of cool, where you can create it something from womb to tomb, create and detail a new project. So here I can just say, create a new project in OnePlan and put some narrative in there about the project, and then say, add a plan. And now it's going to add that, suggest some metadata, and now the details page, it's outlining visions and objectives. It's got scope management, things from the PMBOK edition 7, and the details around that to help start us with that project, and then go further, and then help us have the AI develop a plan for us. And now it just basically suggested a work breakdown structure or schedule, had us align our resources with it, and then as it comes in, adopt it into our plan, and then we can just refine it based upon our knowledge on top of that after we've got that structure in place. Pretty cool, quick ways to get things started. Risk identification and mitigation. So in this particular project called Smart Home Automation, I'm going to ask it about potential risks and how to mitigate them on this particular project, right? Once again saying, hey, here's a risk log we should put up, the things that we should monitor. And as it does that, potential risks, unauthorized access, data breaches, cyber attacks, mitigation strategies, some interoperability and compatibility risks, those types of things. Once again, it's giving me suggestions that I can use effectively. Resource capacity planning. Rank your resources by highest risk. After we put comprehensive resource planning in place within the system, right, we can come in and ask it to assess that, right? So as I go into the overall resource plan, for this particular plan, I can come in and say, rank the resources by highest risk and explain why. And it's going to look at the plan, because it's not looking at its knowledge of what's good and what's bad, but also leveraging our specific data. It's telling me Gavin Belson has extremely high commitment, and he has other overages that really are going to put him at risk that it's looking at, okay? And I identified different resources within that plan that could be problematic. How about just formulating a resource plan at first, like in this shipping and delivery, having it go in and being able to create a resource plan for this based upon the nature of the project and the time frame that we gave it. It's basically going to put a resource plan in place, and it's actually giving me roles and then hours by month. And the cool part here is it knows enough that the business analyst should be more front-loaded in this project, that the project manager throughout, that the QA engineer is probably a little more backloaded in this thing, et cetera. The DevOps engineer for deployment a little more backloaded, et cetera. And it's giving us a list of assumptions, et cetera. Very cool, and we can adopt that into our plan. Looking at our overall resource plan across everything and asking it, what resources am I short on? What do I need to hire? What do I need to contract? As I look at this overall plan, I can look at overall allocations, but maybe it's going to tell me there's other ways that I can deal with this. So as it looks at this, it's telling me that there's high, allocations in these specific skill sets. And in this particular data set that we used, there was a lot of over allocations, right? And then how many of each do I need to hire? And as we go through here, it's going to help us with some suggestions in that regard as well. So it's saying for the business analyst that we need 2 additional resources, developer, maybe 2 to 3 additional resources, etc. Operational, no immediate need, etc. So once again, helping us augment our analysis of all this. You know, we can do the same types of things with financial data analysis. We can actually use it for communications. For example, asking it, you know, help me write a project summary email to my manager. So for this particular support customers using mobile application, I can actually, you know, ask it to write me a summary email about the status. And it's writing it to me in email format. So it's ready to go so I can apply it into an email. And including things like project objectives and the progress that we've made and the key metrics that they might be interested in, etc. Once again, saving us so much time and effort in this regard. Same thing with status report narrative, very similar use case to writing the email, but giving a status report narrative that we might want. So hopefully that gave you some food for thought about some of the potential things you can do. And we're just scratching the surface with these examples that we're giving you. There's so many things that people are using today. So with that, I'd like to summarize that we talked about today, the strategic portfolio management has become very important in today's business environment. That the increased complexity and the fast pace of change requires enhanced methods and approaches beyond what we've done traditionally. And the evolution from departmental PMOs to EPMOs is addressing the needs of modern organizations, and AI has many applications in this portfolio management realm and can greatly augment our human efforts that we're using today. Hopefully, we've shown that OnePlan provides you a potential end-to-end solution for strategic portfolio management, and we deliver it from the Microsoft Cloud. And if you're already there, it's very seamless in its implementation. And from a bottom-up standpoint, OnePlan connects to existing work management tools so that we can bring that data in and make a more complete data set for you. And the use of AI is advancing quickly, and there's a lot of practical things that you can do with it this very day. So OnePlan is consistently recognized as a leader in this realm. Microsoft recognizes us consistently in our areas of project portfolio management as a partner of the year. Globally, the Gartner group has recognized us and voice of the customer for strategic portfolio management. We're in the Forrester Wave for strategic portfolio management as a strong performer, Infotech Research, and others. We do have free trials. So if you go to oneplan.ai/solutions, you can, I would recommend the strategic portfolio management solution that has everything in it that I showed you today. And then it's the most robust set of capabilities. And OnePlan is happy to complimentary provide assistance to you on OnePlan to get the most value out of that. And then we also have these things available to you up on Microsoft AppSource. So take us up on the free trial and the free assistance that you get. Or if you just want to have a discussion or a brief workshop to roadmap where you're at today and what it would take to get you into a solution like this, and maybe what steps you can take, we're happy to have that discussion with you on a complimentary basis as well. And I gave you a high level, demo. I didn't really give you an in-depth demonstration. So if you want a free personalized one-on-one demo, just reach out to us at contact@oneplan.ai or research more about us at www.oneplan.ai. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time today. I know it's valuable. To bringing things together into a common hub, we call that the power of one. And bringing this stuff all together to realize the things that we talked about today is something that you can achieve today. We hope to hear from you. We hope to engage with you. Reach out and let us know how we can help. Have a great day.